An international affairs analyst, Paul Ejime, joins us now for more on this. Mr. Ejime, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Teniola. Thank you for having me.
So, only 10 African countries backed the suspension of Russia from the UN Security Council last week. 24 abstained from the vote and 9 voted against the move. Why is Africa seemingly staying on the fence in this conflict?
So I think it is in the best interest of Africa, really, not to take sides in this fight. I mean, there is African saying that when you see two people fighting, as a third person, you try to bring peace. You try to make peace and not begin to side with any side. But look at it this way: Africa has always done under the OAU. They had the non-aligned movement. You know, when we had the Cold War between the two superpowers. And yet again, is the superpower policy, politics that is playing out. And Africa should carry, not plunge itself into this matter, because the impact might, if you decided with America, the EU, and others, because they are getting support, what happens is that the correct? Is that the side that is would be said to be right in this case? You decided with Russia. Is Russia right to have invaded Ukraine? No. But what is happening is that instead of taking sides, I think Africa will do well to maintain a middle ground so that it can, after the end of the war or the conflict, it can still negotiate. It can still get leverage from both sides of the warring parties. So I think it is not right, in my opinion, for Africa really to take sides in this conflict.
But the refusal by some African countries has generated some criticism. Some analysts have raised issues of territorial integrity, tying Russia's invasion of Ukraine to colonial domination of African states. Do you think this puts countries like South Africa, who abstained from this vote, on the wrong side of history?
No, I think what is happening in South Africa is actually the one playing this neutrality card. To say, listen, when two cousins are fighting, Ukraine and Russia, they are supposed to be neighbors. You don't poke your nose into it and begin to side with one and then say, okay, come on, like the EU or NATO is doing. I think NATO is not even helping matters by this. Starting what an Irish parliamentarian called them, using more war to stop a war. You cannot do it that way. There is negotiation. There is dialogue. I think Africans should be among those, like the UN, trying to mediate, trying to find a way of getting the two countries together so that there is peace. Because even after killing, look at the thousands of people that are dying. Look at the destruction that is going on. And look at what the sanctions are now causing. You know, every part of the world is feeling the consequence. Is that what we want? Let negotiation and dialogue be the one that not just every day they wake up, Europe will wake up with another sanction. This is not to justify the invasion. But after the invasion, what happens? And by the way, this is not the first invasion in modern history. America and NATO, they have invaded countries before, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya, even in Africa. And by the way, again, look at the frenzy with which everybody is now talking about Ukraine. What happens to the many conflicts in Africa? Why has the world not come to Africa's rescue? There are conflicts that have been raging for ages. Why hasn't there been that kind of this kind of momentum, this kind of concern to end those conflicts? They shouldn't put Africa on the line or make an Africa a scapegoat. I think African countries should do their best to remain neutral. And then I think the statement is good. Let the two parties come to the negotiating table and not take sides blindly because Africa might suffer. You know, Africa is vulnerable. You can suffer. It doesn't matter who wins or who loses the conflict.
And just to bring in what South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said last week, he blasted the UN Security Council as outdated and in dire need of an overhaul. Has this war exposed the UNSC's ability to fulfill its mandate of maintaining international peace and security?
Well, I think if one saw what has happened in Iraq, in Israel, in Lebanon, in Afghanistan, and Libya, there is no saying that the UN needs some reform. Look at what is happening. The powers that have veto, they have veto status at the UN Security Council. They will not let anything pass. And so UN has become, if you like the word, weakened. It has been weakened. One will remember that even during the Iraq War, the now late Secretary General Kofi Annan was doing, some troubleshooting, even going to Iraq, trying to persuade America and the Israelites that Saddam Hussein did not have, there was no weapons of mass destruction. But they went ahead and went there to bomb. Look at today, Iraq is a failed state. Libya is a failed state. Afghanistan is also a failed state. So, well, the UN is as strong as its members, its weakest member, or is the strongest member. There are those who are just there. The Assembly, General Assembly, keeps giving resolutions that are non-binding. The decision stops at the table of the Security Council. The 5 of them that wield, veto power will not allow anything to pass. So that is where the situation, that is where the problem lies. So long as they leave these countries with the veto power, they will never allow, they play their own, it's a case of enlightened self-interest. Everybody protecting their sphere of influence. And that is what is happening now between the U.S. The U.S. that is now leading the fight against Russia because of Ukraine will never permit the kind of thing that Russia is also complaining against. Having nuclear power or, a strong, say, European power near Cuba. Remember the Cuban War. Remember what happened. It was because of the same thing. America will not allow it. But that is not to say that Libya is justified. But let us look for peace. The world can ill afford this kind of thing. Look at the economic problem that COVID has caused. And they're now adding this to it. It is not only Russia, it is not only Putin that is going to suffer. The rest of the world, that is where the NATO and America and the EU, they should now look at it and see what is the end game. Is it to, suffer the rest of the world because of this? Something that can be negotiated? Why are they every time talking about more wars to end war? It doesn't work that way. I think Africa is right, in my view. South Africa is to be seeking peace and staying in the middle course and not delving into somebody's. It's like somebody would be, they say you are drinking Panadol for somebody else's headache.
All right, then, International Affairs Analyst, Mr. Paul Ejime, thank you so much for your thoughts on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.